education is to tell us. Yeah, maybe not tonight, and perhaps they'll attempt, and maybe in other forums. The education system as a whole has been going through some metamorphosis of sort, if you can say that, changing the education system from 844 to CBC. Obviously, it wasn't as smooth as it should have been, but here we are, we have it. The first of junior high school students have reported to schools, same schools, some other schools, perhaps a different block. Yeah, they're still continuing, and that happens. Still, we have no clarity on exactly if they're supposed to be new institutions or the same institutions, or they just progress, you know, as move to a new school. Question is this: do we know exactly what we're doing with our education system? That's the fundamental question tonight. There's a lot to discuss. I'm joined studio by the University of Nairobi Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Kiama. Karibu sana. Thank you for coming again. KUPPET Secretary General Akelo Misori.
Thank you so much for welcoming us to the TV.
Shukran. Thank you for coming. And of course, last but not least, is the Africa Foundation Executive Director, Dr. John Mugo.
Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's start from where we should. There's a lot to discuss, but let's start with this question of grades and A's. And Prof, I think it's a good place to start with you. What do you feel about these many A's? You should be happy.
I'm actually very happy. I hope that there were even more than that.
Okay.
Because, you know, we have a way we glorify failure, you know. The more that fail, the better. We shouldn't have such a thing, you know. The way I think we are socialized in this country, we are socialized in terms of a class society. There are those who belong and those who don't belong. And therefore, if you get people getting certain grades, then they shouldn't get, because you are the one who should get, who is on this side, and those others should remain on that other side. You know, the kind of thing you see when you go to meetings, you see some people sit and they have, they're given all varieties of soda. They're given Fanta, Sprite, Coca-Cola, all of them there, each person. But the other people don't have anything. You know, that, we must get out of that as a people. And we embrace success. We must begin to think about when he succeeds, we have succeeded. That's what we should be celebrating. We should celebrate when there is success.
Sorry.
I do think the number of A's which were realized in the 2022 results were unique. The number was still below the expectation, because considering the number of candidates, over 800,000, the number of A's were not such much alarming. And the rumors which surround the whole issue, I think that is what should be discussed. But the number of A's were not as expected. We expected the number of A's to be more than what we had, and nobody is talking about the number of D+ and below in the 2022 KCSE results. Yeah, because we had over 490,000 D+ and below. That one concerns me more than the number of A's.
And that should be concerning. Yeah, we should be discussing a bit more.
We should be discussing that than the number which is causing a lot of alarm. We celebrate those few grades which are on top, just like Prof has said, and then we ignore the critical mass which should concern us, because we should move as a country. I think there must have been somebody, some people who are seated somewhere to look at how these grades work. And in fact, by distribution, when you consider a county getting only 35 A's and one school getting 82 A's elsewhere, yeah, I think that's what the professor is talking about. So you expect a schools in a particular county not to have 600 A's, but you expect them to come from one sub-county of our schools distribution. I think that is what is there.
Yeah, I think I join Akelo in saying that the camera never turns the other way. We celebrate the few, as Professor is saying, but this is an examination that condemns the majority. I think by design, this high-stake examination is developed to favor 10 to 15% of the population. And that, I think, is a huge social justice issue. Why do we let students, you know, in the system for 12 to 14 years knowing very well they won't be going to Professor Kiama's university, and we push them. It's like testing animals, you know, to climb a tree, you know, using just one means, including fish, and judging them, you know, by that. So I think this high-stake examination, for me, I don't think Kenya needs it.
But we're stuck with it. This is the thing. This year in, year out, we talk about, you know, this number, you know, 500,000, you know, below who D+ and below, and the system does not know what to do with these numbers. You know, we get stuck with, you know, the few A's, as we correctly say.
I think we know what to do, only that we don't do it, because you cannot have a situation where almost everybody fails in an exam, like what the numbers is quoting, over 500,000. It's like you're a farmer, you go and plant your seeds, and only a few germinate. and you have prepared your land, and you have bought the seed, and then you plant, you wait, then only a few pops up, and you don't.
And you're happy with that.
And you're happy with that, and you don't panic, and you don't look the next season what you are going to do. No. It's not possible. So I think when you discuss with a few people to find out some of the problem, it is the exam process, the whole thing. There's something that needs to be fixed, because it is skewed quite a bit towards STEM. So you have to do 2 science subjects, then there is obviously also mathematics there, then another technical subjects. So before you know it, you have about 4 subjects, which are all technical. Then after that, you have the language, the English and Swahili. So you are left with 1 art subject, and then after, so you are just tested on STEM, you know. So and not everybody is
STEM oriented.
Is STEM oriented.
Yeah,
you get it. So you end up having that. So there must be another way of correcting for that. After they sit for the exam, you must have a way of correcting for that, because you are the one who introduced that aberration in your system. So you must correct for it, and then do the correct curve for the population. But we don't do it. We just say everybody, you have planted your seeds, just a few germinated, so you go now and sleep, and you say you have done something. It's actually a shame.
Yeah.
At least with the analogy which Professor is bringing on board, you can realize how much we have failed in our education system, and we have taken too long to adjust to the things which work, and maybe we lack the priority put forward for what can develop this nation. Like, for example, how do you explain those who cannot join any college at all, and they are the critical mass of the population which were presented for exams? How do you say that this education system is a success when actually was Dr. Mugo is saying that it is a high-stake exam? Now, is the exam the only parameter of determining the success of a person in this world? Because we have seen that when I want to build a house, I only need somebody who can fix house the mortar and to fix the stones, and I definitely want to sleep in that house. Must you be so much concerned that in this country we must only produce architects? And if they have designed all those buildings, so what? Who will be working on the site to ensure that these buildings are put up? So we have failed this nation as for those who have worked in education. And in fact, I would challenge Prof to tell us why the universities have failed to provide, through research, the best option for us, so that we can be a nation which is moving together. Why do we dismiss those people who can play football, for example? Yet we know that is the biggest industry in the world today, that even here, before the news ends, you must announce sports. It is so critical. You may not discuss education in the news item, but sports becomes an item in the newsroom.
And we want that student who is the best in sports to be measured against math and physics and all that, and be judged a failure.
Yes.
Because they didn't get an A in math, they didn't get an A in English.
They weren't tested for it.
Yeah, they weren't
tested for it. Yes. And everyone else wasn't tested for it. So yes, we put a football exam and test everyone, you know, and graded the same with mathematics.
Yeah, and yet when you see out here, even you know, I mean, people, we are not judged by the KCSE score. You know, for those of I think I and you must have gone through KCSE, and yet this is what we are glorifying and spending a lot of time discussing. So I think a bold move is needed. I don't know why I don't agree with you, James, that we are stuck with it. I think decision can be made now. The president can say we don't have a KCSE. Let professor have an entry examination for those students that want to study engineering or sociology to present themselves with their papers and be assessed whether they are fit for medicine or fit to, and that's what happens in other countries. So I don't know why we believe here that examination is the only way. You know this thing of sorting people out, I think is a bad thing for society, and we are seeing the effects out here on the street, because correcting a person who has been judged as failure, when you know some are being carried shoulder high, you have a D-, you don't know what to do, parents are looking down upon you, you can't face your friends, and by the time you recover from that psychological trauma of this examination, a lot has happened, and that's what we are seeing in our society now. So many people, young people, can't make anything out of their life because the school system actually failed them. I don't think students fail. It's the system that fails.
Just before I go on a break, Prof, this question that is being introduced of, you know, an entry exam. Why haven't we done that? Why don't we have an entry exam so that, like you said, present myself on to do sociology, I bring my papers and I sit for appropriate sort of examination that seems to suggest I have the skill set or the aptitude for it. Why don't we do that?
Because, you know, we are still following quite a bit from what we learned from our colonizers. The British, as a system they use, you sit exam, a national exam, and therefore they determine who belong to what class and who belong to which one. You know, when we talk about education being an equalizer, in this context, it's not an equalizer. It is to decide who sits on the table and who does not sit on the table. So we are still constructed in that manner. So it will take us time, because somebody says, oh, you are going to bring a failure here. But it is possible. It is possible, actually. If you want somebody to come to do sociology, you want them to do philosophy, it's possible to have some metrics to test them and find out whether they will be able to follow through. Yeah, it is possible. But given, if you try to do that, you know, there is also the Commission for University Education. It has already said minimum is C+ to enter a university. You get it? I think even universities sometimes back, they tried to say, let's see whether for the combination of 4 subjects, we can have you bridge a subject. You did not attain this grade for mathematics. You come through some course for mathematics, and we see whether you can catch up now to do. The commission said, no, you just look at this person get a C+ or not. If they didn't, out. So, because it is also decided at that level. So if you try to admit this person without that grade, there will be a problem. And then obviously, you know, there is also the professional societies.
They're also guarding their space.
You know, professional societies are crabs, you know. So they see whether they can allow you in or out. And they decide not at the end whether you have acquired the necessary low skills. No. Before. What did you have in high school? So even if you come, you try to argue that you know low, but what did you get in high school? You don't belong here. You get it? So there is also that kind of thing. And sometimes they say, we want to index you, we want to do this. When you are in high school, almost saying, what did you get in primary school? You know? But you go to US and other places, actually you find some people who live here with the D's, those D's. And they go and they find a way out. They end up doing a PhD there. But here, no. Because this is our education system, not for equalizer. It's not an equalizer. It's a class system. It is to say who belongs here and who belongs this way. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
It shouldn't be the case.
Let me take a short break on that. That's very heavy stuff. Yes, the class system. But there's a new system, CBC, supposedly supposed to fix this. When we come back, we'll delve deeper into this question of CBC and is it solving the problem? Can it solve the problem really, with all due respect?
Centum Real Estate brings to you 265 Elma 1 Apartments, the newest and most stylish development in Kasarani. Pay a deposit of 250,000 Kenya shillings and the balance in flexible installments or mortgage finance.
What am I forgetting?
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Unaweza shinda hadi milioni 2 kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number weka 757070. Account number weka neno Moto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa kisha subiri draw. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLP.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri. I am here to thank our customers who bought the Great Oasis Gardens Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4, and what's more, Phase 5 is now selling. And as we promised, we have already done roads, water. Call this number 0790 300 300. The property is ready for you. For every 100,000 you invest, 1,000 goes towards a worthy cause. Invest today with Optiven and become a philanthropist.
Who am I? Why am I here? What will I be remembered for?
These questions come to a man at different stages of his life.
Early for some, late for others. Yet some men go through life groping for answers.
But fortunately for you, this doesn't have to be the case.
The second edition of Man Cave is an event
where you'll get to spend time with different men. Learn from those who've gone ahead of you
on the journey that is a man's life. Take a trip to the Serene Lake House, Tigoni, and experience the perfect boys getaway. Full of fun-filled games, cars, food, nyama choma, drinks, networking opportunities. 25th of February. Grab your tickets by going to www.kenyabars.com today. The Man Cave. It's a man's affair.
My love.
All right, with all respect, welcome back. We're discussing the question of education, right? And being honest, the question that, our education system, from the KCS results and the A's to the E's and the D's, it provides quite a good area for us to understand our question of education. Why do we even educate ourselves? And I will jump on to the second bit of it, to the CBC. So 2 weeks, I think now, and the question of getting junior high school, junior secondary school, right? They're getting students to transition from what was the first level to this mid-level. That's the idea, and hopefully move to the other thing. But let me start with you, Akelo. I'm sorry. How does this question of CBC sit with you, with all the the starts and the jumps and the stops? How does it sit with you first?
First, let me say that CBC is the way to go, because it is a system which will not churn out failures. Everybody has an opportunity to belong. As Professor puts it, that we need an education system which make us equal. We all belong. That if at the tail end of it we have different pathways followed, then we shall be there. I think there is some misinformation which has been peddled around that CBC is too expensive and so on. No education system can be cheap. And it depends on what we desire to have and how we want it done, and prioritizing of what we want to do in our education system. In my view, as much as we have got transition issues because of failure of our government to plan in time, it does not mean that the system is bad. This is the system that all Kenyans should embrace, and we should all tax ourselves to at least make it succeed. Currently, we have issues of infrastructure in schools. The government has sorted itself out by domiciling the junior secondary in primary schools. What we now expect from Teacher Service Commission is proper planning and the ministry, so that at least as we move to grade 8, grade 9, we shall be arriving at senior secondary school when all the teething problems of junior secondary school are sorted out. The issue of the preparedness of teachers is real, but considering that it is the elementary part of this CBC, we can still do with the number of teachers we have, but with a caution that something should be done in the interim.
But is the elementary part the most important part?
Sorry?
Is the elementary part the most important part of
it is most important, and but there are critical areas which need to be fixed. The teachers understanding the curriculum design and ensuring that at least the correct concepts are passed and the right skills are on the way and on the right track of being guided through.
It doesn't alarm you that we have gone through this bit and pretty much haven't put the correct things for the teachers to understand. Learners have gone through this system and we've just passed them through. It doesn't concern you that that's a problem?
We have not just passed them through. I think this is the misconceptions that we must drive home. There were issues at the beginning, especially when the PP1 was over and we had primary grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Nobody raised issues because the Ministry of Education did not inform the public through feedback mechanism that this is where we were. We were only concerned, and especially the late Professor Magoa, when he was the minister, he pushed the agenda of construction of secondary school classrooms in high school. That is what people knew, that we are going to junior secondary without classrooms. He did not inform the people, or the ministry failed to inform the people that this is where we were and this was the success. In fact, what might surprise you when you jog the mind of the CBC grade 6, even the ones now who passed grade 5 and now in grade 6, and those who are going to grade 7, they are more comfortable with the stuff they are learning, and they are more confident than even the Form 1s who have gone to school, who are going to school on 6th. This one would seriously amaze you. They are very comfortable, and the learning areas, they are more responsible and so on. So this is something which I think all of us need to embrace to ensure that at least we succeed. I know from the point of view of teachers, they have been crying that we are not prepared, we are ill prepared. You know, I must also announce early here that no teacher is trained to teach a specific curriculum. We have got all the teaching strategies at our fingertip. What needed to have been done at the initial stage was basically to get the teachers buy-in, give them the proper induction, so that at least we move together when everybody accepted. But you know, quite a number at that stage, the people were just put in halls and somebody reading that this is what is going to be. That is not the induction we expected. But aware of this, we must be people who know that this is our country and we need to move together. And questioning so many things, that one is correct, but now doing what we are responsibly asked to do should also be done.
Dr. Mogot, do you share the excitement? CBC?
Of course, I am a supporter of CBC because I know the difference between good and bad education. This education we just analyzed that is condemning 80%. I think anyone glorifying that must be the few who have been favored by it and ignoring the majority. But I think the one thing we have failed is to implement this correctly, and I cite 3 things. One, the confusion that came at this transition of to junior secondary is rather unfortunate, because you wonder, when we began in 2016, we knew that in 2022 there'll be the transition to junior secondary. Why didn't we make the decision then? You know, because we understand the curriculum developers have to move as they are moving. But how about the people in Jogoo House? They are not developing the curriculum. They are supposed to be looking at infrastructural issues, investments that need to back the curriculum implementation. So I think there was mass failure on the part of the ministry. And we hope that the next transition in 2025 will be ready this year, because we need to figure out those pathways. How are we reclassifying the senior secondary schools? And they should know.
We have confidence that is happening.
So that they already start preparing now. We cannot wait for 2025. Then we'll be asking, will Alliance be a STEM or this? And they don't even know. Because those preparations for a STEM school or for the one for social sciences ought to start now, pole. Then the next thing is a teacher. CBC is a new way of educating. It's not necessarily new content that they're learning new things. Yeah, it's just flipping so that the philosophy of educating is based now on somewhere else, that the learner has centrality, is occupying a central place in the instructional process. It's no longer now the teacher who walks in with a bag full of knowledge and dishes out like njugus to to the students. So that I don't think half of the teachers understand it, because if they understood it, they would do it even without classrooms and with all this. All they would need is themselves and the children, because this curriculum creates a lot of flexibility in reorganizing the learning experience for children and even the way of assessing. And the third is about the parent. I think so many parents are in the dark, and I hope government will make apology to them, because this, not knowing what is happening to your child, being brought things that you ought to be doing with your child, and you have not been called to school to be educated on how to do this. I think these are the things we must work on. The teacher must be ready, the parent has to be aware and organize how to support. But the policy makers ought to now work in advance of every transition.
Prof, you're confident, again, I see this, there's a lot of confidence in the CBC, but up to now, we seem still, the policy makers, just to piggyback on these points, we get to the situation and then that's when we announce this was going to happen next, Are you confident really that we do have people who understand, who actually have a master plan somewhere and they're following it?
Probably there isn't a clear master plan or what that people are following, but I have the advantage of serving in the presidential working party on educational reforms, and that's what we are supposed to do, to try to provide, because that for some reason it was that was not conceptualized fully. So that's what now we are trying to enter into as a presidential working party, to see, to give certain direction on what needs to be done. And also you remember, and he has already mentioned this, there was a lot of drama around putting up classrooms in secondary schools. And it looks like more like a knee-jerk reaction and a lot of demonstration of how classrooms are being put. So you go to a school has 13 streams, 14 streams, but one classroom or two classrooms are being put. So when you go out, you find actually those things are not there. So there was, and when you also talk to the people on the ground, because we moved around, even the parents, the teachers are very clear what needed to be done. So you find there was a complete disconnect between what the minister was doing and what the people on the ground, that's what I'm saying, particularly the teachers, and they knew exactly what to be done. In fact, they just told us, and we just came, and they told they informed the president, this is what the people are saying. And he agreed that that's how now this decision was made to domicile in the primary school. Yeah. So it is not, the interesting thing is that the people out there know, they actually know what needs to be done. The issue is, can the ministry begin to work a little more with the stakeholders? One of the things you find in our education system, it is actually very well organized. Every school has a board of management. which involves the parents, the students, the people in the community, the church community, and they are able to make decisions. But many times you find the people leave from here and they go to a school to say classroom will be done here, desk should be arranged here. That's where you find a problem. Like, for example, even the exam that was being done in class 6. You go there, the teachers, you ask, how is this exam going to be done? They actually don't know. They say, who knows? It is NEC who are in Nairobi. They say, is it going to be multiple choice? Is it going to be this way? they don't know. We don't need to have that kind of thing. I think if you allow the governance systems that are there to work and work independently, that you listen to them, because those people, you know, in the primary school, that board of management, that they are really concerned about the welfare of the school. Just listen to them. They know the solution, what needs to be done. That is just what has been missing, because there are people who are ring-fenced here in a lobby, in an office, in a ministry, and then they just go and talk down to those people. I think if we exit that, you will see how we will move very fast.
But why do we need these people? So listening to you,
yes.
Yes. There are frustrating bunch and frustrating a lot, because they only hold press conferences and say things that, you know, obviously doesn't translate on the ground. Why do we need them? But most importantly, is the entire education system then just happening by chance?
No. That's why I'm saying there is a proper governance system.
Who has the plan, Prof? Who has the plan? Have you seen this plan?
Yeah, I have seen, because I'm part of the planning. So the thing is, the ministry gives the policy direction. Yeah. The issue is that sometimes there is also
themselves they don't know. They spend so much time talking to themselves.
Yes.
So we are stuck. They talk to themselves, and what's happening on the ground is completely divorced from what they're putting together.
Yes. Yeah.
So what? Question is, how do we move forward with this? And most importantly, we have learners who are going through these systems, and that I think is the most alarming thing.
Yeah. But the learners, fortunately, when we found them, obviously many of them were saying they want to go to secondary school. We were trying to understand, because I tried sometimes even to sample at random, hoping that maybe they are not influenced by the teacher. I say, they say, no, you just, I want to hear you. And they say, want to go to secondary school. You try to listen. Perhaps it is just the excitement.
Why do they want to go to
it is just the excitement of being away from home and being independent.
but Prof, that is important. You did not take the learners, you know, concerns into your recommendations. This is important, Prof.
We did, but going to the secondary school, I mentioned the facilities were not there. 2, the issue of those, they are still children to some extent, whether they will be able to live with the other senior people, like now in Central Region. The community there was very clear. They will say, if you bring this boy and circumcise, and he's going to go to bathroom with this boy who is Form 4, it will not work. And you listen. You have to listen to that kind of a thing. The boy will be wanting to go there, but when they go there, they may not even attain the education they want to do because of the environment for them. You get it? So there were certain things that there was need for them to stay where they are, and then, but they are separated in some way. Because there was a design. The design of the CBC, there was the issue of the age. You know, when you take the 6 years before you join school and another 6 years, that takes you to about 12 years. By that time, you are now translating to a teen. And your behavior is beginning to change. You are beginning maybe to break your voice. You are beginning, if a girl, you are starting to mature. You are beginning to critique and question what you are being told. So you need to be treated differently from the way you are being treated before, because you just break like that. So there was need, obviously, even if you keep them there, but then you try to provide for them a different approach. Yeah. Because if they go to the other side again, they'll find the very senior ones, the Form 4s and the other, they do not cope. It is easier to keep them here so that the transition is not so drastic for them. Yeah. So there was some good thinking. Yeah. To CBC. CBC.
Yeah, I think all these things, James, I know were thought through.
Yeah.
But I think there's always this political disruption. Again, always depending on who is the head at the helm in Jogoo House. I know for sure that the decision that had been made even earlier was to domicile in primary school because, as Professor says, there was all this evidence collated. You remember Akello, even the discussions in the other task force, and this was just overruled. Last minute that it will go to secondary school. So when you read the document, there's a document, James, called the Basic Education Curriculum Framework. If you read that document, this thing was thought through from end to end. The problem is implementation. I think the curriculum developers did a good job. We have not heard of a situation like now where they are going to grade 7 and the syllabus or now the curriculum designs are not ready or the books are not ready. Those have been ready. But I think these political disruptions and personal interests and wanting to educate our children now in 2023 the way I was educated myself in the 1980s, I think we haven't gotten over this, that life has changed. The world has moved and it has to be a new way of educating now for us to meet those objectives. When you look at junior secondary, the objective of junior secondary is that transitional moment where the parent, the teacher, and the student themselves consult very closely to identify the interest, the potential, and all that of the child, and look forward now into the career that they may end up in. So if this student had moved from Mandera to come to Kiambu to school, how will the parent consult with the teacher closely? So this objective of junior secondary cannot be achieved if the children are going to move far from home, but also the age thing, the child protection and safeguarding issues that come with people of that age. I think that decision to domicile at primary was the right one. But now you ask, are we going to stick again a lot of money in the brick and mortar, constructing labs and all that, as a president has insinuated, or are we going to look at quality and investing where we know the leverage is for the learning to happen? Because even with the box somewhere in the corner of a classroom that is opened for experiments, because they're not going to do the experiments that we were doing in Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. This introduction it's a physical science if you look at what they're learning. So it's better to invest more in the teacher, getting the teachers of the junior secondary ready, more than because they have a class, more than, and then I ask, and I don't know whether anyone here has an answer. Why should Ministry of Education and head teachers be in construction? They are not engineers. What is the Ministry of Public Works doing? And it's the same government. So I think also we want now teachers to move into construction. Of course, construction is good because it has benefits. But why are we not going for a system approach where government has engineers? It's full of engineers who are idle. They should be the ones knowing what kind of a class and design to consult with BOMs as the teacher does instructional leadership, concerns with how the curriculum is being implemented, not moving around looking for contractors when they are supposed to be in class.
Do you have an answer to Dr.
As much as I may not have very conclusive answer to what he has now finished with, it is very, very important for us to know that the philosophy of education was not compromised. What was compromised was basically how to move forward at the transition stage, which of course was already ventilated over and over and over. As what now, for example, I happen to have gone to school earlier, maybe with Prof here, we must have gone to school earlier, and the last time the government had a lot of investment in schools, especially secondary school, was I think 1975 up to 1982. In 1982-84, the investment was basically in colleges. But early 1975-76, that is when the government constructed many laboratories in many government-aided and government government schools for that matter. There were some schools which were called government assisted, who were only getting teachers, but government aided had the laboratories being constructed and the teachers being posted. Then the government schools had everything now. The government schools which were called real government, like in my region there's a school called Kisii government. That is Kisii High School used to be called Kisii government. So it was not a district school and so on, because it was selecting all over the Nyasa region and so on. It was there before, even during the colonial period. But now, the issue we have here, as alluded to by Dr. Mugo, we have Ministry of Works, Public Works. We should know the design of what a lab is and so on. Today we have manners of all laboratories. Some are on the 6th floor, 4th floor. Others are down here. And when you look at even the way the piping has been done, it is not in conformity with what we have. So the people who are at Jogo, I think, are the ones who should take the bulb. They should shape the bulb from our side. They slept on the job. And at long last, when politics also came into play, you realize now things could not work well, because the new government wanted also to make this thing work, because they are also part and parcel of Kenyans discussing this. Was it really true that you were supposed to domicile this thing in secondary school? What are the matrices which are available for us to ensure this one succeeds? As much as we have domiciled it in primary school, Dr. Mugo and Prof, there's one major challenge, that as much as it is introductory, most of the primary school environment does not have the right staff. That's why I said that we should now get prepared for grade 8, grade 9, and the senior secondary school. And it is good, Prof is in the Presidential Working Party, that for us to lay a very strong foundation, which you doubt, it is important for us to get in the buy-in of the teacher and prepare the teacher well. Yes. In other jurisdictions, the person who teaches the person at the basic level is more qualified than the person who teaches at the university. Because the person who is going to the university already knows what can be done.
Yeah, basically Prof is the easiest work.
Yeah, his work. You know. And he knows that very well, that when he gets however weak a person is, that person will tell this one, there's no joke here, you have to work yourself. But down there is where we get somebody who has got the grasp of what education is, the philosophy behind education, and what we need to have. This is the direction for Kenyans. And they come from there when they are patriotic enough that we are Kenyans and we must do things ourselves. If the teacher handling that category is still having question mark, then that is where investment should be. Personally, I learned in lower primary up to beginning of lower primary in a class, but not a classroom. But I'm here today, you chose to invite me. I wrote on my lap throughout that period, because there was no desk, but we were sitting on stones. But the person who is was key to my education there was the teacher. So that is where we must start from. If we have not done it, because I know we have not done it properly, that is what the Presidential Working Party must invest in.
Okay, let's break this down. Final question then. The whole question of education is supposed to solve something. This is a bigger question, and people are asking that after we're done with this, 10, 15 years, 20 years from now, Kenya would have certain professionals, would have certain people who are holding, the country together. What is this education system supposed to achieve? What kind of people, 10 years from now would be coming, we're seeing, would be holding this country together? What is this education supposed to do for us?
Education is supposed to open your mind to just be able to know that there are alternatives to what you are doing now. And therefore, as a society, it brings stability, more stability to the society. And also brings now development, because the people bring in new ideas. But if the people are not educated, then be prepared for conflicts. and the fights and the people doing like, because now when he says, I start thinking I should sort it physically. When I could wait just for him to finish, because I have also another few, he also listens. So that is the education we want, an education which brings stability to this country. We are, especially now, you know, we are very heterogeneous community. There are various ethnic groups in this country. If the people are not brought to the same level of knowledge, then they will remain in their cocoons and they will remain so much divided. So we must invest in education, and we must be ready to invest even up to university education. Not to have everybody just remain with the basic education alone. We must invest in higher education also. You have countries, even if you take countries like Korea, all that, they have like about, if you take an age of about 25 to 35, about 58% of that population has gone to the university. Here, we are talking about 10% kind of thing are we talking about. And we are living in a global community. Because when you educate the population like this, and you ensure you give them an opportunity to even develop that critical thinking, the way to question, because at the university level is when you are taught now how to question what you are doing and what others are doing, so that you try to think of a better way of doing it, not just repeating what was done or what you are taught. Then we will now fit into the global community. When you go out, you are thinking about the people in London or people in the US. You are also the same. But when you are not educated, you remain back behind there. So as a country, we must continue to invest because that way we are securing our future as a people.
Dr. Mugo, how do you say folks say that this system is only building workers for the global economy? That's all we're doing. How would you respond to that?
No, I think for me, good education is supposed to deliver three things. As Professor says, the first is to open the mind. When your mind is opened to possibilities, you're okay. And then the second thing is to tame the heart, to moderate, you know, for you to be able to moderate, understand your own feelings, understand yourself, and be able to work with them. And the last is to train the hands. You know, when we have people who have that kind of attitude, you know, world view, then I think we are going to have better society. Education is not just supposed to prepare for the workforce. No. We are supposed to also have self-fulfilled people. Even if you have a job, there's so much more you need beyond a job. Like now, after here, James, you are going home. You're not going to be working throughout.
Hopefully.
So what are you going to do? And maybe that if you're not, then it may also be part of the problem. but I think when we create this balanced person, like one, we did one assessment recently, a very big one, assessing problem solving among adolescents 13 to 17 years. And what you find is that we have trained our minds to a single answer. You know, there is only one single way, and
one correct way of doing things.
Yes, and yet problem solving is about exploring different options and using a certain methodology to pick the best and apply it. So you find if you go to a classroom here, like now, what happens when the teacher is asking a question, before even the teacher finishes with the question, all the hands are up. So it is either that question is too easy.
Like those not thinking.
Yeah, you know, because what the teacher should do to promote opening the mind problem solving, when you ask a question, tell them to first think about it. Don't you know, this me, no, put your hands down. What information do you need first for you to understand this problem? And then what are the various options? Discuss as 2 or 3 of you. Give 5 possible solutions. Then of those 5, which is the best and why? You know, when we now open the mind and not box it into you know 4 factors. I remember, Professor, when I was teaching at the university, this asking for give 3 factors. Who say there are 3? why can't they be 5? Or you know, just because one Frenchman somewhere said there were 3 and it was based on research, that is what we you know, and it happens a lot at the university. So that open-ended question, the difficult question, the complex problem, is what opens the mind. Now, aspects like empathy and all that, when you look at what is happening out here, you look at how people are driving, I think we are a society in crisis, because we have no feeling for the other, we have no sense of the common good. And I think when this education trains people now who are able to look at the world beyond themselves, then we expect that for sure we will have a better world. So these competences have been built into the new curriculum. Of course, teachers can't teach what they don't have. So for me, the challenge again is still the teacher. The teacher has to be a problem solver first before they can facilitate problem solving.
Your final thoughts?
Not necessarily.
Hopefully,
not definitely my final thoughts, but I think the values that we have must be properly put in the right context. I think it's very, very important, as my colleagues have said here on the table. We need to have a teacher, not a teacher, but a learner who has the attitude to face the world objectively, not just facing the world because I am born here and then I must survive. The survival skills must be embedded with the values. So this is something which is not, and it's something which happened during the just concluded World Cup. When you look at every team went to play, but look at the Japanese and how they handled their post fixture, where they were, and they had to pick all the litter from the stairs and then leave where, despite the fact that they were very tired. So they led in being environmentally conscious, because this world belongs to all of us. Something that they learned because of their system. So that is what this system is giving us. Another aspect is opening to us avenues where we are not failures. We must know that we are human beings, we are endowed with different skills, talents, and so on. So in the life that we live, I can go to a different pathway where I can do best and still just make a living from that. Unlike now that when I'm defeated with becoming a lawyer, I must just take a motorbike to ride. And I must follow politicians to give me something to survive on. I think this is the difference, that as I foresee CBC as a program at the tail end of it, that element of me being a job creator than a job seeker must be solved.
The one challenge with values is that values will not be taught. They have to be demonstrated by others so that children pick them. And
you're asking too much from the political leadership.
Yeah, so when the politicians are fighting in parliament with seats in county government and so on, they are actually failing CBC, because value-based education is dependent upon us practicing those values so that our children may pick them. So this thing of thinking that CBC will fix all the problems you have in Kenya, I don't think so. I think if we are committed to a different society, each of us, a home and the children I have to be that role model for the values. The teacher has to first demonstrate those values and live them. The school has to be the space where values are lived and experienced on a day-to-day basis. Not just thinking that I'll come here and tell you, you need to be honest, and I tell you, name the 5 reasons why we should be honest. Honesty has to be promoted from home to the streets to school, and so we have a big challenge as Kenyans ourselves if CBC has to work, because the school never creates any new thing. The school just mirrors society.
What's in society? Yeah. Prof, that's your camera. What would you tell the 490,000 students who got a D+ and their parents, and they're watching you tonight, and like, what is happening to us? What do you tell them in a minute or less? That's your camera.
All is not lost. I think that's what I would say, that there are still opportunities for one to explore their capabilities and still succeed in life. So just take that and move on. Don't just say that now you have failed, you have been condemned. We know that this exam system did not measure exactly who you are. You are better than the grade you got. And go for it and you will succeed.
All right.
Yes.
Professor Stephen Kiama,
yes.
the University of Nairobi
yes, yes.
Vice Chancellor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Zizi Afrique Foundation Executive Director, Dr. John Mugo, thank you very much for coming through. And of course, Cooper Secretary General Akela Misori. Nashukuru sana. Gents, well done very well. Thank you very much. You should have this more and more. As you've all heard, the education system doesn't teach everything. We need to fix this. With all due respect, good night. My name is James Matt. Gotta love you and leave you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.